We cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with The Mark Steyn Show.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Kerr. Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs and Kerr, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking now. We all know, don't we, by now, that the new budget is on its way. Less than 2 weeks away, in fact. So it's got me pondering, let's face it, things are in a bit of a mess, aren't they? So how do we build, again, the British economy? What should the future look like when it comes to economics? What do you want to see? Do you think more austerity is an inevitability or not? And where do you stand, by the way, on these tax issues? Do you think that everyone should be getting higher tax increases? I'm laughing because who's going to vote yes for themselves to pay more tax? But you never know. If you're one of them, tell me. And Gen Z, Gen Z, I don't know what you call them. I'm in England, so I won't say Z, I'll say Z. Generation Z. You know, is this the most intolerant generation yet? Interesting. I mean, seems to me anyway. People have their view, these young uns. That is their view. Or else, that's what you've got to do, adhere to it. But has it always been the same, or is this generation slightly differently? And we all know by now, don't we, the absolute state of what is going on when it comes to the channel. Did you know, though, that over 200 children have gone missing, basically, from the hotels in the UK? It's got me pondering, by the way, how do we even know what a child is? Of course, in some cases, it's obvious. In other cases, less so. Suella Braverman wants to X-ray child migrants to verify their age. Predictably, many people are outraged, I tell you, outraged at that suggestion. Is it common sense, or is it absolutely bonkers? You tell me. We'll have all of that to come and more, but first, let's bring ourselves up to speed with tonight's latest headlines.
Michelle, thank you, and good evening to you. The top stories on GB News tonight. 2 Metropolitan Police officers have been sentenced to 3 months in prison for sending grossly offensive messages in a WhatsApp group with Wayne Couzens before he murdered Sarah Everard. And a warning, the following does contain some flash photography if you're watching on TV. PC Jonathan Cobban and former PC Joel Borders shared messages of a racist, homophobic and misogynistic nature in the chat group in 2019. The pair have today been bailed ahead of an appeal against their convictions at the High Court. Meanwhile, thousands of corrupt police officers could be serving in England and Wales, with a new report blaming poor vetting. After examining 8 police forces, the watchdog found officers who'd been previously convicted of domestic abuse or accused of sexual assault were taken on and employed. It says the vetting process is questionable at best and found a common culture of misogyny, sexism and predatory behaviour towards female police officers. The report author, Inspector of Constabulary Matt Parr, told GB News the findings are disappointing.
Is vetting strict enough? And the answer is no. That means there's a too great a chance of the wrong people joining. Secondly, did the police deal with misconduct strictly enough? The answer to that is also no. That means too many of the wrong people are allowed to stay in the forces. And thirdly, what is a culture of misogyny and sexualised, predatory sometimes behaviour towards women, like in policing? And the answer to that is not good at all.
Well, the National Police Chiefs Council Chairman Martin Hewitt told a parliamentary select committee addressing the problems will identify more issues.
We have to deal with those, and we are dealing with those, but we've got to work through and continue to do that. And sadly, what I think that will mean is there will be more stories of, Officer X being sacked for this behaviour and that, but I'm comfortable with that because we've got to be open and demonstrate that we're not prepared to accept this kind of behaviour in our organisation.
Well, in other news today, the Prime Minister has conceded not enough asylum claims have been processed, but he says action is being taken to fix that. Rishi Sunak, who's been under pressure to sack his Home Secretary Suella Braverman, defended her during Prime Minister's questions in the Commons today, saying they're both on the same page when it comes to tackling migration. But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, blamed the Conservatives for breaking the asylum system.
She did get one thing right. She finally admitted that the Tories have broken the asylum system. Criminal gangs running amok. Thousands crossing the Channel in small boats every week. Hardly any claims processed. So why doesn't he get a proper Home Secretary, scrap the Rwanda gimmick, crack down on smuggling gangs, end the small boat crossings, speed up asylum claims and agree an international deal on refugees? Start governing for once and get a grip.
What I can say is a significant action that the Home Secretary has taken to fix the issue. Since September, 30 more hotels with 4,500 new beds, appointing a senior general to control the situation at Manston, and indeed increasing the number of staff there by almost a half, Mr. Speaker. These are significant steps to demonstrate that we are getting a grip of this system.
Meanwhile, a young migrant being held at the Manston Processing Centre in Dover has written a message in a bottle-type letter describing how there are pregnant women and sick detainees at the facility in Kent. The girl threw the letter over a fence towards a PA news agency photographer. It suggested 50 families had been held at the Manston facility for more than 30 days. Hundreds of migrants were moved out of the immigration centre yesterday after the site was found to have been significantly over capacity. According to new figures, there are now 10 million people who were born outside of the UK now living in England and Wales. ONS figures show that number has risen by 2.5 million since 2011, driven by an increase in Romanian arrivals. The statistics mean that out of a population of almost 60 million, about 1 in 6 people were not born in the UK. The United States is accusing North Korea of covertly supplying Russia with a significant number of artillery shells for its war in Ukraine. The White House says Pyongyang is trying to obscure the shipments by funneling them through countries in the Middle East and North Africa. In September, North Korea said it had never supplied Russia with weapons or ammunition and had no plans to do so. Meanwhile, after suspending shipments, Russia has now announced it will resume its participation in the UN-brokered Black Sea deal to export grain. You are now up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. Time now for Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that, Polly. Well, I'm with you right through until 7 o'clock this evening and keeping me company here in the studio. I've got the entrepreneur, David Tabizel, and the political consultant, Emma Burnell. Good evening to both of you. And you know the drill, don't you, about Dewbs & Co by now. It's not just about us three, it's about you at home as well. What's on your mind tonight? You can get in touch with me, gbviews@gbnews.uk. As usual is the email address. Or you can tweet me at GBNews. Lots of you getting in touch already, by the way. Peter is saying, Michelle, when it comes to the economy, 2 years lockdown. That is what you are pegging the blame on. Interesting. I want your thoughts, by the way, on the economy. I'll talk about that in just a second. But what should the future of this economy in this country look like, I'm asking? Of course, because we've got this budget, the new budget, just around the corner. Remember, Rishi Sunak said that he perhaps wasn't going to go to COP27 because he wanted to focus on the budget. Well, he's going there now. So perhaps it's all ready and good to go. So I can't help then but speculate of what is going to be in it. Also, I want to talk to you tonight about Generation Z. Are they one of the most illiberal generations yet? And child migrants. There's been suggestions that in order to find out who is a child when it comes to crossing the channel, you should x-ray them. I mean, I've got to be honest, I don't think they're talking about x-raying 5-year-olds, obviously. I suspect it's people on the cusp that say they're under 18, but perhaps don't look it. Many people are outraged by that suggestion. Many others are saying it's simple common sense. Where do you stand on it? Let me know all your thoughts. Just a reminder, gbviews@gbnews.uk is my email address. But first, let's get into then, shall we, the economy. You know, we know it's coming by now, don't we? We've had the failed Trussonomics, which were, of course, all about growth. Now, apparently, we might be heading headfirst into more austerity and also higher taxes. Of course, we all know by now as well we've got higher interest rates. What do we need to do in order to rebuild the British economy? David, I'm going to start with you. You are a leading entrepreneur in this country. If you were Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Hunt, what would you be putting in this autumn budget? What do you think the answer to this mess is?
Well, austerity really isn't the answer. It really isn't. And I'm an ex-banker, an entrepreneur, worked on both sides of the Atlantic, and the incompetence of this particular government is stunning. I've always believed that the Tories have a reputation for financial competence, but something's gone really, 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 really wrong. Now, when I first studied economics, we learned about the multiplier effect, and that is simply, you know, an economy is not like your house. You don't just say, I won't spend so much and that'll be fine, because then you get involved in something called the paradox of thrift. And that is this, right?
Paradox of thrift,
paradox
everyone.
of thrift.
Every day is a learning day on Dewbs and Co. Go on.
I'll tell you all about it. And it really matters, you know. And if you take 100 people in a village and one person's a butcher, one person's a baker, one person is a cleaner, if there's £10 and it goes round and round and round, and instead of that £10 being spent on the cleaner, she can't buy a lamb chop. The butcher then can't go to the window cleaner, and everything stalls. So the first thing is to stimulate what's called the velocity of circulation of the money supply.
Good grief. I'm going to be testing you lot at home at the end, by the way. Make sure you're all keeping up. Go on.
Sorry, yes, well, all right. But the point is, money goes round. An economy is like a human body, and we might argue on either sides here of our political spectrum about what we want as a result of an economy working. But I tell you what, an economy is like a human body. If the blood isn't flowing, which is money, the patient dies, and that's what's happening. We're getting gangrene setting in. So what we need now, first of all, I fully support Rishi in getting rid of our reputation of being completely strange and amateur. We have to get the confidence of the international markets. The first thing we have to do is understand the scale of the problem we've got now, and I think that's the right thing to do. By doing that, by actually compiling a balance sheet for the country, by getting our beans in a row, people can go, aha, now we know what the problem is. And right now...
But we know what the problem is. We've got a load of debt. We've got a black hole. What's the
no. The problem is, what is the size of the problem, and how do we best deal with it? And then we can go to the OBR. We get some forecasts, but forecasts result from policy. Policy should lead to forecasts, not the other way around. That's what happened in 2008, which I'm still angry about. The financial system was working. We had a bunch of nutters lending too much money, a bunch of crooks manipulating the financial system. Get rid of the crooks. We had a fairly wealthy world in 2007 with some problems. Now, what we've got is a depressed economy. If we raise taxes, if we cut public services, and we have no plan for growth, we have no plans to encourage trade, to do trade deals, if we have no plans to encourage genuine investment, and I don't mean just public spending, then the Albanians are welcome to the country. I'm getting out. But I do have some ideas, but we should let you both.
Well, yeah, I'm going to come back to your ideas in a second. Emma, go on, your thoughts.
I mean, I disagree with very little of that. I think it's absolutely right. We do need to make sure that money is flowing, and the money circulation happens because people are going and buying things. They're not feeling the need to pinch them. They're not feeling the need, and we get our local economies in particularly circulating when people can go out and buy things. I think David's absolutely right. Austerity is not the answer. What we need is well-managed, well-understood, targeted investment. And myself, I would put it in two particular areas. I think we need to invest in skills so that we have a well-educated workforce that are fit for the kind of future, not that we need in 5 years, but that we need in 50 years, so that we understand that we really do the work to understand who we're going to be as a country in 50 years' time and how we get there, who we can be as a really successful country. The other thing I think we should invest in is much more infrastructure. Personally, I would put that into things like renewable energy. Again, it's looking at that 50-year view. There's a concept called cathedral thinking, which is where you think beyond your own political lifetime, beyond your own lifetime as a CEO, for example. Oh, I've got
your poppy's
my poppy's gone. I'm so sorry. I did have one, honest
Wheels
guys.
are coming off. Wheels are coming off. You get abused now.
I will. Why isn't she wearing a poppy?
We're gonna rummage under the desk during the break, and we'll find it and we'll reattach it.
But that for me, I think what we need to do is put money where it will make money for the country.
But the thing about you are using the word investment in a different way to, I think, how economists and business people would say. I don't disagree we should have education that's fit for the 21st century. We're currently educating people for the 19th. I don't disagree we should have infrastructure, but we need to encourage investment by companies, by individuals that generates profits, that generates economic activity.
How do we do that?
I agree with that. I don't think it should just be state managed at all. I think there are good partnerships and ways that the state can create the space to bring in private investment.
Well, you and I are going to have very different views of what a successful country looks like and a successful economy. We'll come to that later. But what I think is this. One, let's work out exactly how bad this so-called black hole is. And secondly, let's get the confidence of financial markets. Rishi Sunak, I believe, is going to do that. He understands because of his Goldman Sachs background. Great. But other than that, we've all got poorer since Sunak's been around. Other than him, he should be called richer Sunak, quite honestly. Now, what are we going to do about this? Firstly, we need a solution to the COVID debt. I believe lockdown has made us all poorer. OK? So what we should be doing is creating like a war bond.
Yes.
Like a bad bank. We can all invest in it. We can make money out of this, and everyone can get 2.5%, 3% interest. That problem's gone away.
Right. Well, let me ask you specifically about this, because you are an economist, so I'm hoping far smarter on economic things than me. When Rishi Sunak did his first speech, and we'll all remember this, when he was on the steps of Number 10, he said the following, and I'll quote him directly. He says, "The government I lead will not leave the next generation, your children and grandchildren, with a debt to settle that we were too weak to pay ourselves." And it kind of got me thinking, why wouldn't you? Why are we obsessing with paying down this COVID debt now? Because when you think about the First World War debt, Second World War debt, whatever, indeed future generations, us, we were paying off that debt only recently, actually. One of those debts has just finally been closed. So what is the answer to that? Because to me, it seems like basic common sense to package this up, kick it out into the long grass, and unfortunately, the future is paying it off. That's the way it goes. Why isn't he doing that then?
Because we have government by TikTok. It's all about platitudes. It's all about sound bites. He knows what he's doing. The thing about it is, will he do it? It's not, if you buy a house, if let's say you buy a house for 1.1 million and you put down 100 grand, it's not, I mean, the house may go up and may go down, you're living in it, but the point about this is, can you afford the mortgage payments? If your interest rates are 1%, you can. If they're 7%, you can't. And this government has said, well, we've got all this debt. I know. Everything's overheating because of the gas prices, which, by the way, is a short-term thing. Don't overreact. Don't put long-term solutions for short-term problems. They're raising interest rates, thus meaning they can't afford to pay their own debt. They're slowing down the economy. All we now need is some tax rises, some higher interest rates. The whole thing goes bust. That's mad. This country can restart if we just apply some calm, intelligent solutions. We need to take the past, we need to make it affordable, we need to take the future, discuss it and plan it and get on and create a start-up Britain. It is possible, and we can't be doing this levelling up anymore. We've got to go to work.
Oh, hey, hang on a minute. Can't be doing levelling up. I want to bring Emma in, but I can't let you... In fact, actually, I'll come back to you on that sentence. I can't let you say, hey, your poppy's fallen off as well. Is it only me? Well, actually, mine's pinned firmly onto my bosom. It's going nowhere. I'm going to come back to you on levelling up in a second. But on this skills thing, in Singapore, I think it's wonderful, actually. They have this thing, it's called skills credit or something like that, whatever, you can Google it. And what they do is every adult over the age of 25 gets, like every year, they get a sum of money where they can kind of keep themselves on top of qualifications, courses, whatever. And I've always thought what a sensible thing to do, and I've always been perplexed as to why we don't do anything like that.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I did my master's degree in my 40s. I did my first degree, you know, like everybody else does, as a late teen, early 20s. And I remember saying to my the course leader, I said, I'm the kind of mature student, I hate completed at 19. He said, what do you mean? I said, I do all the reading. The lifelong learning is a gift in itself to you as a person. You know, the things that you get when you go back to studying as a older person, as I am now, is incredible. But also, you know, the world that I grew up in, that when I did my first degree, I had one computer I could go and use, one terminal in the university. Whereas now, of course, I carry one around in my pocket all day, every day. We're in a very different world. And in 20 years' time, we'll be in another very different world. I'll still be working in 20 years' time. I'll need to have very different skills. So, of course, I'm going to want to keep learning. And that's true of all of us.
People will be watching this at home, though, going and saying, yes, Emma, you will want to keep yourself up to date and skilled, but why should your man Joe from Wigan there have to fund you?
Well, because the man Joe from Wigan there will benefit from me learning and me then contributing back to the economy and me giving further back to the areas that I work in. And I want Joe from Wigan to have the opportunity to do the same thing. That's the point. It's not just for people like me.
What did you study?
My first degree was completely pointless, if I'm honest, sociology and English literature.
Right.
And then I went back and did my master's, a very practical course in journalism.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's very impressive. But at the same time, Tony Blair's idea that 50% of the population should go to university, no one learns how to go to work, that's and then everyone has to ended up borrowing. That's just created a very confused, very unproductive population. We'll talk about that later when we talk about Gen Z.
I mean, I think there is a lifelong learning aspect that could be much better created, taking away the snobbery of, oh, it's all got to be book learning and the kind of high sort of ivory-towered universities. I have so much time for further education and really kind of apprenticeships, getting in, grafting, skills training, that kind of stuff. The stuff that when I go and do, much more practical work, I spent the day actually cooking as a volunteer in a kitchen. Fantastic. Felt so much more satisfying than actually sometimes just sitting and looking at a blank page as a writer.
Well, I mean, you've got to say, by the way, many people at home these days, they can't even cook. Honestly, I'm not even joking. All these people that say that they can't afford to eat and all the rest of it, I am fascinated as to how many people know what to do, how to cook from scratch these days. You don't learn that anymore at school, do you? Anyway, I'm not letting you off the hook, young man.
Yes.
You just said then something along the lines of, forget about levelling up. Well, as a northerner, not happy with that. What do you mean?
Levelling up is what you do when you've buried a dead body. That's what you do. And
What?
I really think, yes, you level up the soil. And it's just a platitude. It's nonsense. What you have to do is define what kind of society and economy you want.
An equal one, my viewers will shout. An equal one.
No, they don't want an equal one. Nobody's equal. You can have equality of opportunity, but what you have to first of all do is realise we're all different. We're all talented in different ways. We've all got deficits in different ways. That we need to increase the mobility. So if you're really good at law, you can go to work where you can both study law and you can go and work where the legal businesses are. The same with financial centres. If you want to make movies, you go to Hollywood, right?
Why should all of these... But you're saying, you can train as a lawyer and then you go to where the opportunities are. The argument would be, and I'm a northerner, why should northerners, whatever, it's not just about the north and south, but why should people, say from Yorkshire or wherever, have to leave their homes and go to London, for example, for career opportunities? Why is it a bubble if the decent opportunities exist here?
Well, there should be great industry all over the place, but you're an inspiration to us all.
Oh,
and you've come. You are.
Can you clip that up, everyone? Whoever's in the background gallery there, clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
Put that as my ringtone.
No, you are. You're inspiring. You've come from a really tough background, and you are now working in London because that happens to be where this industry is. Now, but
I'm not happy about that. I shouldn't have to leave my home to come to London for an opportunity. There should be opportunities in my home.
Well, you could start a media business in Hull, couldn't you? But you're here, and that's fine. And if you want to take it back to Hull, the point being here is that we have to have a functioning economy, and then we have to teach people how to function in the 21st century, in business and in health, and we have to get the educational system functioning to do that. And there are some very obvious things to do for the economy right now. First of all, in rising interest rates, we have to, and I'd like to see something about this in the budget, we have to have protection for the normal person that has now seen their mortgage payments.
Like what? What do you mean?
Well, we should probably have some government-backed mortgage securities like the Fannie Mae's, and they have that kind of thing in the States, where the government should underwrite probably around 50%
Emma's
of the
pulling
mortgages.
faces.
Wasn't Fannie Mae part of what crashed the economy in 2008? The Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac bailouts?
Yeah, but now it's government controlled and it's functioning very well. We have to be able to insure reasonably and professionally people's debts if we're going to increase interest rates. Otherwise, we crash the economy. So I would say number one is we need to deal with, if we're going to raise interest rates, which I think is wrong, I think we're reacting to
but that's globally. Central banks globally are raising their base rates. It's not just here, is it?
Well, I think they should rise a bit, but not that much.
Anyway, carry on with your plan then, because I'm going to need to go to a break in a minute. Go on.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go on, go. No, you.
No, but the thing is, we're here. We have to.
So go on.
As a country, we have to actually have intelligent conversations about the economy. And one, if we drive millions of people into negative equity, that ain't going anywhere. If we don't allow a young person to get a mortgage, that ain't going anywhere. If we don't take the COVID debt away, we're just going to go backwards. If we raise taxes for companies, they aren't going to open here. If we raise income taxes for everybody, it just stops people working. We have to start thinking about generating activity to get wealthier, healthier, and we can get on with our lives and build a better society.
There you go, Rishi Sunak. If you're listening, you could be a consultant. Free economic advice there for Hunt and Rishi. Many people are appreciating that. I'm going to take a quick break because I want to reflect on some of your thoughts when I come back. And I also want to talk to you about the young. So I do. Oh, I remember being young. When you were young, were you intolerant of opinions that were different to yours? I have to say, Generation Z, they really do seem to be quite an intolerant, illiberal generation, don't they? Tell me your thoughts on that, and we'll have some of your thoughts on that first topic as well in just a couple of minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan Tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, keeping you company right through till 7 o'clock tonight. Here in the studio with me, we've got the entrepreneur David Tabizel and political consultant Emma Burnell. Lots of you getting in touch about that last subject, basically all about the economy. What do you think should happen? What do you reckon is going to happen? Brad said it shouldn't be about austerity. That is what will crush economic growth. We will all be poorer. You said, Tim, basically we need to cut the size and scope of government. It's basically now morbidly obese and it needs to go on a diet. Peter said, Michelle, if the government doesn't keep the triple lock, frankly, they are toast. I've got to say, I know that a lot of you guys will agree with that when it comes to the pensions. Elise says, simple calculation for the new budget. You need to reduce your astronomical spending against HS2, hotels for immigrants, NHS, foreign aid, Ukraine war, etc. So to you, Elise, it's simple. Just stop spending money on things that perhaps aren't focused necessarily always on this country. Interesting. Simon says, people, I think basically what you're saying is that many people are indeed obsessed with degrees. You didn't have one and you've gone on to become an engineering manager, you say. Simon says, Michelle, people should not borrow what they cannot afford to repay. That is simple. Too many people who are working are claiming benefits. They're taking too much out of the pot, says Yvonne. Well, keep your thoughts coming in. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Right, let's talk about the young, shall we? None of us, I've got to say, no offence to my fellow colleagues on this panel, but
you can X-ray me.
Yeah, you can X-ray you. Crikey. I was going to make a really hilarious comment, but I decided not to. But yeah, we won't be X-raying anyone. That, by the way, is the final topic that I'll be coming on to a bit later on in this programme. Should the government be X-raying the people saying that they are children when they're crossing the channel? Let me know your thoughts on that. But let's talk young, shall we? Generation Z, to be specific. Where do you stand with the young? Do you think that they are an intolerant bunch? Apparently, a new study that's concluded Generation Z, by the way, that's people born after 1997, God, that makes me feel old, they are less likely to sympathise with people that they disagree with. Emma, I've got to say, there does seem to be this kind of thing in society at the moment where it's quite disconnected, and it is often an age thing. Lots of the young people will say basically a man can be a woman, you can be anything that you want. Older people will say that's absolute nonsense, and the two don't really get on. That's a simple example, but there's many of them. Do you think Generation Z are quite illiberal, intolerant?
I think that Generation Z are almost certainly very much like Generation X, my generation, were disagreeing 100% with everyone who came before us. The difference is, I think now, is that we have much more shared space because of the online world. So instead of sitting in your own two pubs that might be next door to each other 20, 30 years ago, thinking completely separate thoughts, what we're doing is tweeting at each other and being exposed to how much we disagree so much more. And I think that, for me, is the thing that's happening. People disagree with the people who came before them is not new. It's been at least since the invention of the teenager in the 1950s. It's like a badge of honour to rebel against your parents, to rebel against the generation that came before you. So if your generation that came before you is all like, hey, let's be centrist dad and completely liberal and agree on everything, then yeah, the next generation's going to flip that on its head and say, no, I will not listen to anyone who disagrees with me. Personally, I think it's unpersuasive. It's not how I teach people to try and change minds when I'm talking about how to do campaigning. I think it's not how that generation is going to get what it wants, but I also don't think it's new.
David?
Well, I'm a a parent of 2 Gen Zers, as we're supposed to call them.
Oh, is that what we're supposed to say? Gen Z?
I think
but
so.
We're not,
we're
not in America. I wouldn't call Z if I'm doing the alphabet.
So, well, let's call them whatever they are.
Whatever.
Anyways, it's just a brand name. Look, rebelling. Yeah, I'm 57, and rebellion is not the same as apathy. And I think, honestly, they're disenfranchised. It's a group that's grown up digitally, and what that's meant, particularly with what they've had to deal with the lack of their social, cultural and educational lives because of the COVID lockdown, is we now have, and I know I'm going to get there's going to be a lot of anger about what I'm about to say. It is almost as if Gen Z are, as a group, because of the disenfranchisement, becoming almost, they're inward-looking. They seem to have lost their social skills. There's, I'm on the board of a university, and I'm out there running around. I can tell you that a lot of people are wearing headphones. They're looking at their shoes, and they're able to have conversations with people in the same room on WhatsApp. They're not able to talk. They're not able to relate to what other people. They're communicating in emojis, and I don't blame them. And to seek a certainty about life, they're looking for a group identity. So with no platforming in universities and trying to impress and compete narcissistically on TikTok and on Instagram, it's in danger of becoming a wasted generation. And of course they're less tolerant because they're able to understand the subtlety of a different emoji, but they're not able to work out what somebody means. They're not able to be tolerant of people making mistakes, of views, of arguments. Half the time when I start speaking, I don't know what I'm going to say, and half the time I disagree with what I'm saying, and I think intelligent debate is so key to a modern civilization. You say something, you go, actually, I'm wrong. You test it, you make mistakes.
Yeah, but a lot of these young people or younger people, and it's not just young people, by the way, they have this view, and I will pick on my simplistic example, and I know it's only one thing of a much broader thing, where they absolutely, completely believe that actually a person can flip-flop genders, flip-flop biological sex. And if that's your view, that's your view. My issue with it becomes when it's then kind of, right, this is my view, and if you don't agree with me, you are, I don't know what the terms are, TERF, you are this, you are that, then there'll be orchestrated campaigns to get you almost ostracised out of society.
And this is true, but having been on the sharp end of one of those campaigns, I can tell you it weren't just younger people that were behaving like that. The intolerant problem, it spans generations. No debate doesn't work, and we know that because as soon as debate happens, people who've spent 10 years saying no debate, no debate, no debate have lost their debating skills. But again, I come back to the idea, I don't think this is new. I don't think it's specific to this generation. I don't think it... I was slightly giggling when David mentioned the sort of staring at the shoes. And the only reason I say that is because there was this whole musical movement in the early 90s when I was a teenager called shoegazing. A band called Ride were at the sort of foreground front of it. And the people who were 20 years older than them nicknamed this shoegazing.
But you grew out of it. You grew out of your
But exactly, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure in 20 years' time, this generation will have also moved on in the way that I did.
I don't see it. I
but we always don't see it when we're the generation above.
I'm seeing a lack of interaction. I'm seeing a lack of tolerance, which is almost fascistic. Okay, I see. If you don't agree with me. So you have non-binary sexuality and you have binary truths and values. That is a worry. Then you have the growth in the collective. So people are almost forming moral trade unions, and that is very dangerous. And yet, my generation, your generation, the generation above mine, we're not talking to these people. We're not including them. We're not showing them. We're pricing them out of education. We're not teaching them about capital. It's our fault, not theirs. It's our fault. And we have to all talk to each other. Otherwise, we're going to get some kind of weird cultural Palestine here. I tell you, it's really worrying. We're going to talk about, they can't afford houses. Well, we need to find a way of making sure that they're involved. We cannot just let this be, and we have to teach people how to debate, and we have to teach people that it's okay to make mistakes, and they do not. This is the indignant generation. They don't have a right.
How do you teach someone, open to both of you, to debate when they genuinely think my view is absolutely right, there is nothing to debate, full stop?
Expose them. Attack them.
And I think we should be far, far earlier teaching critical thinking skills, teaching debate skills, but showing how to. But we should be.
Yes.
This should be happening from a much younger age. People should be asked to make the side of a debate they disagree with, so that they understand how argument works, and that's something that is incredibly valuable, and it helps to. I always say, when I'm talking about any campaigning issue, you have to understand your opponent better than they understand themselves, because that's the only way that you make progress, is actually through understanding the reality of what you're up against, not the stereotype of what you're up against. And too many times we go back to our silos and we say, these people are like this, and they are unchangeable, and they are fundamentally like this. And unfortunately, what that means is you then let any argument that you have, any strength of argument, any of the reasons why you passionately disagree with them, all of that atrophies, because you can't make that argument in the space of no debate. And that's why I think we've got to keep saying, no, you must debate. You do not get to say no debate.
Do you have kids?
No, God, no. I've got a niece and nephew, that'll do.
I don't know. I just don't think we help young people these days, because you're all the time, these safe spaces, a trigger warning that, this person can't come into school or college or university in case they, heaven forbid, say something that you don't agree with. And I think it's a bit of a recipe for disaster. Dave's just written and said, Michelle, Generation Z can't even tell the time using a clock with, you say fingers, hands. I don't know what to say there, Dave. I think you mean hands, but I get your point. Victor says, you're all mincing your words, Michelle, because I think what you all mean to say is that Generation Z are stupid.
No, they're not.
Not at all.
I feel, look, it's a different generation, but critical thinking, empathy is needed. And also, right, honestly, I now know, without any shadow of a doubt, how stupid I am. I am fantastically stupid.
Oh, see, I find out every day a little bit more how stupid I am.
In the middle, I just think I'm wonderful. What can I say?
You're young.
Go on. Yeah,
and wisdom comes from the realisation of applied curiosity. And without empathy, and without arguing, and without having a mind change, if you think you know everything when you're 21 years old and you continue to do that and you're in an echo chamber, this ain't going to work out well. And as a country, as a nation, as a society, we have to open things up and allow people to mix, not just with people with different opinions, but different generations. And this country used to be the most amazing place to do that.
Well, guess what? Gen Z has been in contact. Elliot, who's 19, he says, I don't care what views people hold, as long as we can sit down for a debate and go for a pint afterwards.
Quite right, Elliot.
Yeah.
Quite right.
He says, I promise you, we're not all as woke as many people think. Well, there you go. Lots of respect for that viewpoint here, Elliot. Right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about the situation with children crossing the channel. 200 odd of them in hotels have gone AWOL, gone missing, however you want to word it. Suella Braverman is saying that she's considering X-raying people to see whether or not they are indeed children. Many are outraged. Many think it's basic common sense. Where do you stand on it? Tell me, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Are authorities, are communities doing all they can to combat violent crime? With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank and, of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales
And Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Michelle Dewbs, keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight. Here in the studio with me, we've got entrepreneur David Tabizel and the political consultant Emma Burnell. Welcome back, everybody. We've just been talking about Generation Z or Z or whatever it is. Gen Z is so intolerant, says one of my viewers. It's impossible to work with these people. They don't want to do a day's work, cannot be told how to do anything. It causes them stress, anxiety and sickness, absence. God help them. No amount of empathy helps, says one of my viewers. Malcolm says, tragically, this generation of absolutists, in their view, many are generally incapable of emotional good health and have easily become followers into the echo chamber of social media. But, Malcolm says, they are capable of change. Matthew says, Michelle, I am a Gen Z and I do not think Gen Z lacks empathy. We are always stereotyped to be the image that you're talking about when really it's not like that at all. There you go. Let's move on then, shall we? Talk about the channel crossings again tonight. Of course, Suella Braverman seems to be coming under fire left, right and centre these days, doesn't she? Anyway, the reason she's in trouble today is because she said that the Home Office are considering a proposal to X-ray migrants who claim to be children in order to verify their age. Emma, 222 children, or so-called children, have disappeared from the hotels that they've been placed in. Suella thinks that this is a good policy, perhaps, to try and identify who is indeed a child. Obviously, she's not going to be X-raying 5-year-olds. It's going to be more kind of people that say that they're, 16, 17, 18, but perhaps look 25. Where do you stand on it?
I think there are two separate things in that question. There are 220 people that we believe are children or are currently told are children have vanished. That's not a good thing. Whether they are children or whether they are older, these are probably people who are in the clutches of a gang of people traffickers, and they have gone we don't know where, and that's terrible for them, it's terrible for us, it's terrible for the system. The system is so broken. On the X-raying thing, to be honest, what we're seeing is Suella Braverman, it's it's more Tory psychodrama. What she's doing is throwing out increasingly ridiculous suggestions. The idea that you can X-ray the difference between someone who's 15 and a half and someone who's 16 is insane.
But that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to ascertain, are you 15 and a half or are you 16? What they're trying to ascertain is this... I'm trying to pick my words. I can get into trouble, I can sometimes. Is this person who reckons that they are under 18 but perhaps looks 30... Are they actually a child?
But you can't tell the
life?
skeletal difference. Honestly, it's just a nonsense. It's an absolute nonsense. But Suella Braverman's not an idiot. She may have come across as an idiot quite often, but she's not one. What she's doing is essentially daring Rishi Sunak to sack her because she knows he can't.
But this was originally Priti Patel's plan, by the way.
Well,
so what Suella's saying is that she's going to carry it through.
Yeah, but again, what they're doing is throwing out ideas that just sound so completely absurd and are completely absurd, not because they think they're going to work. We don't need X-ray machines to decide whether that won't work. If I had the slightest inkling, the slightest thought this worked, I'd take it more seriously. But this isn't a serious suggestion. What we need is a serious grip, do the stuff we know works, run the system properly, make it work, get the people in who can make it work, invest in serious policy, not gimmicks.
So you don't think if there's someone that presents who looks like an adult and says that they're under 18, you don't think that it's a sensible idea to try and check as best you can?
As best you can, absolutely. X-raying them, please.
David?
Well, I mean, this is misdirection, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
We've got look, you can't tell someone's age with an X-ray. There's something called age doping in the Olympics, and they've tried X-raying for bone dens. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, we've got a major problem, and I've got some ideas for that, but 222 kids, or possible kids, have disappeared. Why? That's the problem, not have they been X-rayed. I do think we should have DNA tests for people that want to come into the country, and that's controversial. That way we at least can verify their identity. Here's the thing, right? And this has to be said. Whatever your views on Brexit are, there's something called the Treaty of... Was it the Dublin Convention, I think it was?
Yeah.
And before, certainly in the 2000s, we used to be able to send back failed asylum seekers to our safe countries, and we could do that through the...
But we hardly ever did it, though.
No, we did. We did 31,000 a year.
What,
Yeah, we did.
sent back 31,000
during the 2000s
Right.
we did, because it was enshrined in our EU membership.
I
Now
thought
we're
we
sending...
hardly sent anyone back.
We did. It's a really interesting fact. And now we're sending 5,000 people back because we know what to do. So the first thing is we need to do something about sending people back. We also need... I'm the child of immigrants from the Nazis, and my family was sent when they escaped for a year and a bit to a humane internment camp on the Isle of Man. My mother was able to go in and out of it, and it really worked well. And that way, you have a chance to intelligently process what's going on. But what we have now is a mixture between...
But are you advocating that in this country? Do you think there should be internment camps in this country?
Well, I don't know about internment camps, but this is a long-term problem of 40,000 people a year, maybe more, maybe 50, 60,000. It ain't going to go away. It's happened. It's 75,000 people trying to get into Spain, I think. This is what we now have. And we have gangs and we have organised crime. This is Tony Soprano behind it. We live in mafia states like Russia, causing problems on the geopolitical front, and then we have gangs making money, and the people that are coming don't know what's going on. We have to deal with that. So we need some long-term solution. We need to be DNA testing people, and we need to do a deal with the EU to solve that problem. And then at least, and the other thing, by the way.
But what about this child thing? What about if you've got a fella?
Nonsense, though.
Why is it nonsense?
It doesn't matter. It's 200 people, and some of them are kids, and they shouldn't be stuck in hotels, and we should have kept a track on them. It's irrelevant. It's like
No,
misdirection.
it's not irrelevant. If you've got a child in a school, and it's you've got a child in a school, and all of a sudden some fella rocks up into your kid's maths class saying that he's actually 15, that's not irrelevant. That's a
but they shouldn't be in a big
issue.
school. They shouldn't be in a hotel. And they shouldn't be in a normal school. We need time. Look. We used to be able to process asylum claims in about 8 weeks, right? Now it takes 450 days.
Yeah, but that's because of the volume of people coming
No, it
in.
isn't.
No, because the volume hasn't gone up. It's how they're coming that's changed.
It's not just that either. The volume of competence has gone down.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm a software entrepreneur, and we used to produce software for the government. This is inexcusable rubbish, OK?
Inexcusable rubbish. There you go. I'm going to have to pause on that thought because look at the time, everyone. It flies, doesn't it, when you are having fun. David Tabasel, Emma Burnell, thank you very much. Got to say, many of you guys at home, you're proper into the concept of screening to see whether or not a child is indeed a child. Many of you saying, by the way, if all these hotel rooms are up for grabs, why aren't they going to the homeless in this country? Why aren't they going to the veterans? Why not? Indeed, I would certainly support that if you are indeed going to have hotel rooms as a key tenet of your strategy, which, by the way, I don't think you should in the first place. Anyway, look, it's almost 7 o'clock, which means it's time for Nigel Farage. Good evening, Nigel. What do you have for us?
Michelle, thank you. We have some exclusive polling out in a few minutes' time showing the public, particularly Conservative voters, have really had enough of the growing Channel emergency. The numbers around how many think Sunak can do a good job on this are alarming for the government, to say the least. My audience question and big debate tonight is Sunak sunk by the migration problem? Back with that in just a few minutes.
Hello, Aidan McGibbon here with the latest forecast from the Met Office. Certainly been another unsettled day across the UK. Wind and rain has swept in from the west. That clears through overnight, but it lingers in the southeast, and then further blustery showers arrive, hot on the heels of this area of weather fronts and low pressure towards the northwest of the UK. Squeezing the isobars actually overnight will lead to strengthening winds once again for western Scotland, 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts for the Western Isles, and further heavy rain at times as well. A gap in between across northern and western England as well as Wales, but by the end of the night the heavy rain is there across East Anglia and the southeast. Some particularly wet weather to come and gusty winds. 12 Celsius in the southeast, where we've got some gaps further north and west. A colder night to come, mid-single figures, in some shelter spots low single figures. So a fresh start to Thursday, but well, big contrast across the country. We've got the wet weather lingering for a time across East Anglia and the southeast. We've got lively showers further north and west. Some sunny spells in between, but a gusty wind will make it feel a bit colder compared with recent weather. And into the evening, well, the showers will really get going across parts of Wales and the southwest, and then along the English Channel coast during Thursday evening and overnight. Now these showers will be lively with hail and thunder. Could bring some particularly heavy rain once again to southern England, and that's a cause for concern. So a lively night to come in the south, but elsewhere actually the winds ease, clear spells, and Friday